Fate. At its core, fate is the idea that certain events in your life are fixed or predetermined by forces beyond your control. Rooted in the Latin word fatum, meaning has been spoken, fate is often visualized by the image of the three fates in Greek mythology: Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, who spin, measure, and cut the thread of life. These external forces suggest that no matter how hard you try, some aspects of your life are inevitable, whether those are moments of serendipity, hardship, or even meeting someone who changes your course. Often, fate is linked with a sense of inevitability and even negativity, as in phrases like, "a fate worse than death," indicating events that feel both inescapable and disempowering. Destiny. Destiny, while related, carries the notion that your future is not only influenced by external circumstances, but can also be shaped by your own choices. Deriving from the Latin destinare, meaning to establish or to make firm, destiny implies that although there might be a set path laid out by the universe, your personal qualities such as courage, compassion, willpower, and perseverance play a decisive role in how that path unfolds. In this understanding, you aren't merely a passive participant, you have the agency to alter or mold your destiny. Phrases like, "be the master of your own destiny," capture the empowering idea that your actions and decisions continuously carve out your future, making destiny a more dynamic and interactive concept than fate. In a sense, fate represents a deterministic aspect of life, and destiny represents an ability for the freedom of choice. So the question would be here if we can integrate fate and destiny, a two seemingly contradictory concepts, into a one frame of thought. To start, let's consider a simple, everyday example to illustrate how cause and effect works in our thinking. Imagine you have an important task to complete, a project due at work. The cause here could be the stress and anxiety you feel about meeting expectations. This emotional state then affects your cognitive processes in several ways. First, your worry might cause you to focus excessively on potential mistakes rather than on the steps needed to succeed. Second, because of this heightened focus on failure, you might decide to overanalyze every small detail, which can lead to procrastination. And third, recalling past experiences where stress led to a mistake reinforces your anxiety, creating a feedback loop where both cause and effect reinforce one another. In this scenario, the initial anxiety leads to overthinking and indecision, which then further strengthens the anxious feelings as you worry about not making productive progress. This example shows how one mental state, anxiety, can cause a cascade of effects in our thinking. You feel anxious about an approaching deadline. Your mind starts to fixate on the possibility of errors, parking you in a cycle of doubt, so you delay starting the project, which in turn fuels further anxiety. Recognizing this cycle can be very powerful. It allows you to ask, what triggered my anxiety, and how can I break this cycle? For instance, engaging in stress-reducing techniques or breaking the task into smaller, manageable steps can shift your focus from fear to productive action, reversing the negative effect. What this tells us about our thinking. This chain of cause and effect in cognitive processing isn't limited to stress. It appears in many areas of our daily decisions, from how we form opinions to how we develop habits. By understanding the triggers and their outcomes, we're better equipped to adjust our strategies for approaching challenges and making decisions. Now, let's integrate this with the concept of fate and destiny. Fate represents a life lived without awareness of the underlying chains of cause and effect, a state of passivity where events feel preordained and automatic. Destiny, in contrast, is characterized by an understanding of these causal relationships that empowers an individual to break free from automatic patterns and align with their true self, thereby actively shaping their own path. While these innate patterns might suggest that we are bound by an unyielding chain of cause and effect, human beings uniquely possess self-awareness. Through practices like mindfulness, reflective journaling, therapeutic intervention, and cognitive behavioral techniques, we engage in a process of introspection that reveals the origins of our impulses. By understanding where our instincts come from, whether a reflex stemming from past trauma or a biological predisposition, we are not fighting against determinism. We are illuminating it. This clarity transforms mere reaction into reactive insight, opening a gap between stimulus and response that is ripe for conscious choice. In this illuminated space, free will emerges not as a mystical force that defies natural causality, but as the potential inherent to our capacity to understand ourselves. As you decipher the chain reaction in your behavior, relationships, or even in the broader environment, each gained insight empowers you to disrupt habitual patterns. This is akin to a feedback loop where awareness fuels change, and change then refines your understanding further. Over time, this continuous cycle can guide you toward a state of individuation, a process of becoming your true self, free from the unconscious forces that once distracted your actions. Philosophical implications. Traditionally, free will and determinism have been seen as mutually exclusive. Either we are completely free or entirely predetermined. Yet, according to the perspective we have examined, free will is not the sudden liberation from causality, but the ability to work within its constraints. It is a compatibilist approach that reconciles the influences of our inherited and learned behaviors with our consciousness. Our freedom lies in our potential, the capacity to recognize, interpret, and ultimately redirect deterministic currents by harnessing self-awareness. This dichotomy echoes many philosophical and psychological narratives. For instance, many Eastern traditions speak of karma as an ongoing cycle of cause and effect, which can only be transcended through conscious insight. When we become aware of these inherent patterns, we open the door to change, transforming what might have been a fated series of events into a dynamic, self-directed destiny. The act of understanding itself becomes liberating, offering a way to rewrite the narrative of our lives. This process is akin to shining a light on the automatic, often unconscious factors that shape our behavior. When these factors become clear, it's easier to disrupt habitual patterns and cultivate a more deliberate way of living. The act of understanding itself becomes liberating. In a sense, even a deterministic system, bound by the laws of cause and effect, finds room for transformation when it turns its attention inwards to observe and modify its own processes. This reflective capacity is what enables individuals to break free from conditioned cycles, moving towards a state of individuation where they become true to themselves. Let's consider how these abstract ideas can manifest in our everyday lives. Career transformation. Imagine someone who's been following a career path laid out by external expectations, a job that feels like it was chosen for them, not by them. This is a life of fate, actions that appear automatic and predetermined. However, through its individuation process, by journaling, therapy, or deep self-reflection, the person begins to recognize that their true interests have been sidelined. They may slowly transition toward a career or entrepreneurship that aligns with their inner passions. This transformation is not a sudden escape from fate, but a gradual, conscious redirection. A move toward a destiny crafted by deeply integrated self-knowledge. Relationship dynamics. Think about how many of us fall into similar patterns in relationships, often unconsciously mimicking dynamics learned in childhood. In a fate-oriented approach, we may simply repeat familiar patterns even when they cause discomfort or harm. By engaging in individuation, perhaps through mindful practices and reflective counseling, an individual can uncover hidden beliefs about love, attachment, and trust. With these insights, they begin to break free from these automatic cycles, consciously choosing partners and nurturing relationships that respect their emerging sense of self. This shift empowers us to convert repetitive, fated interactions into deliberate, destiny-driven connections. Lifestyle and health choices. Daily habits, such as diet, exercise, or even leisure activities, can often be dictated by societal norms or ingrained routines. Fate at work. An individuation process might reveal that these habits mask deeper emotional needs or unresolved conflicts. For example, someone who constantly follows a strict routine might realize that integrating flexibility and self-care honors their unique rhythm and needs. By adjusting their routines to reflect a more authentic personal rhythm, choosing food, exercise, and relaxation practices that resonate with their inner self, they transform mundane habits into a dynamic expression of a personally tailored destiny. Each of these examples shows the transition from living automatically, guided solely by fate, to actively choosing and shaping one's path through the ongoing process of individuation. By becoming aware of the unconscious forces at play, individuals can reinterpret routine experiences, transforming them into opportunities for purposeful growth. Now let's move from scientific and philosophical language to symbolic language. Myths are powerful tools. They distill the complexities of human experience into stories filled with symbolic language and archetypal images that resonate deeply within us. The myth of the labyrinth is a fascinating tapestry of invention, mystery, and symbolic meaning, woven into the fabric of ancient Greek mythology. At its core, the story unfolds on an island of Crete, where King Minos commissioned the brilliant craftsman Daedalus to construct an elaborate maze. The labyrinth, designed to confine the Minotaur, a fearsome creature with the body of a man and the head of a bull. In the myth, the Minotaur was born from a curse or divine retribution, and its monstrous nature necessitated a containment so complex that escape seemed nearly impossible. The labyrinth wasn't merely a physical trap, but also a representation of the intricate and sometimes confounding paths of fate, instinct, and human behavior. It has often been interpreted as a metaphor for the inner maze of the human psyche, where our most primal instincts and early conditioning form winding corridors that can easily entrap us. A central figure in this myth is Theseus, the legendary Athenian hero, determined to end the terror of the Minotaur. Theseus volunteers to enter the labyrinth. Recognizing the daunting challenge ahead, the insightful Ariadne, daughter of the king Minos, gifts him a ball of thread. Often referred to as Ariadne's thread, this simple yet ingenious tool becomes his lifeline. As he journeys into the dark, confounding corridors, he unwinds the thread behind him, creating a clear path to retrace his steps once he has confronted and defeated the Minotaur. The symbolism here is powerful. The labyrinth represents the deterministic forces of our existence, our genetic makeup, ingrained habits, and the predestined corridors of our past. While Ariadne's thread signifies insight, guidance, and the human capacity for self-awareness. Just as Theseus uses the thread to navigate an otherwise bewildering maze, we, in our own lives, can use self-reflection, wisdom, or external guidance to navigate our internal labyrinths, transforming automatic or destructive responses into conscious, deliberate choices. This myth has resonated through the ages because it speaks to our universal struggle between the forces that shape us and our desire to understand, and thereby transform the conditions of our existence. It's a story of challenge and liberation, of facing the monstrous elements within and emerging with a deeper sense of self-mastery. In conclusion, by understanding the complex interplay of our behaviors, feelings, and mental states, we gain the power to alter patterns that once seemed predetermined. Fate represents a life in which we remain unaware of the underlying chains of cause and effect. A life where actions and reactions occur passively, as if preordained by forces beyond our control. On the other hand, destiny symbolizes a life transformed by awareness. It is the journey toward individuation where understanding these chains empowers us to break free from automatic patterns and align our actions with our true selves. Finally, Nietzsche's concept of Amor Fati, or love of fate, is about embracing everything that happens in life, both the good and the challenging, as necessary parts of our journey. He didn't advocate for resignation, but for an active, loving acceptance of the reality we're given, even the unchangeable parts of it. In this view, while we can't alter the fundamental aspects of our fate, We can choose to see these conditions as the very canvas upon which we paint our destiny. Rather than lamenting what cannot be changed, we can transform every experience into an opportunity for growth and self-creation. That loving acceptance is exactly what Amor Fati is about. Loving in this way is the very essence of destiny.